A common man suddenly gains superpowers, making him different from others. But controlling superpowers requires extraordinary actions. And suddenly, one day, he sets out with his daughter, driven by this superpower. However, for years on end, he had no relationship with his daughter. And coming back after so long, it's as if he completely changes his daughter's life. Today, I won't tell you a typical superhero story. Today, I'll tell you the story of an ordinary father. And by listening to this story, you'll understand why fathers are called superheroes. The story begins in a renowned chicken shop in Korea, where the chickens are so delicious that people from far and wide come to eat at this shop. The owner of this shop is a girl named Sumi. One day, a news channel interviews Sumi and her mother. Here, Sumi reveals that when she was just 10 years old, her father abandoned them. Since then, her mother has struggled a lot to raise her. And today, behind the creation of this chicken shop, her mother has contributed immensely. As Sumi recounted her mother's sorrow, she became very emotional and began to cry while giving the interview. Then one night, when Sumi was sleeping in her shop, suddenly some construction workers arrived there. Without seeking any permission, they started breaking the glass of her shop. Seeing this, Sumi became very agitated and immediately called her uncle, asking him to come quickly. But before Kim could arrive, the construction workers broke the door of the shop and entered inside. They forcefully dragged Sumi out of the shop. On the other hand, Sumi's mother, upon finishing her work, was returning to the shop when she saw the construction workers dragging Sumi out forcefully. Then she tries to stop them, but they push her away. Sumi's mother is compelled to attack them with a car. Seeing the car, the construction workers retreat, causing Sumi's mother to collide with a wall. Then the construction workers forcibly drag Sumi's mother outside, and when they try to get out of the car, Sumi's mother falls on the road. And colliding with a nearby walkway railing, she receives a blow to her head and falls unconscious. Seeing Sumi's mother in such a state, the construction workers also become afraid. In the midst of this, Sumi's uncle Kim arrives there. Then they all together take Sumi's mother to the hospital. While Sumi's mother's brain surgery was underway, a UFO was seen in the sky of Korea, which crashed into a mountain there. And from the middle of that UFO, something bright emerges, mixed with water. Meanwhile, at that very moment, the doctors pronounce Sumi's mother dead. On the other hand, a person named Sukun is seen drinking water from a spring that emerges from the mountain. Suddenly, the bright objects from the UFO inside his mug fall, completely changing the taste of the water. After drinking the water, Sukun feels that the water might have gone bad, but no one around believes his words. When the scene changes, we see a general shop in Korea where Sukun works as a security guard. In between his duties, he steals coffee, tissue papers, etc. from there. Despite being cautioned by a co-worker about this, he doesn't listen and even gives tips on stealing to the same co-worker. However, when the co-worker doesn't show up for work due to illness, Sukun gets caught stealing for the first time. As Sukun finishes his work, he starts having severe stomach pain while drinking beer at another general shop. In pain, Sukun accidentally overturns the chair table he was sitting on, revealing the power socket beneath his feet. Upon hearing this word, when the shop owner comes back, he might think that this person is probably acting strangely due to excessive drinking. So, he tells Sukun to leave from there and go home. When Sukun tries to light a cigarette, he notices that the lighter is lying far away from him. When he tries to reach for the lighter with his own hand, it comes to him automatically. Seeing this, Sukun becomes very surprised. Right at that moment, Sukun receives a call on his phone. Sumi speaks from the other end of the line, saying, "Dad, Mom has passed away. If you can, come and see her for the last time." Here we come to know that Sukun is Sumi's father, who had left Sumi and her mother when she was young. Upon receiving Sumi's call, Sukun goes there and discusses with Sumi about her mother. But while talking, Sumi realizes that the construction company people have come there, and they want to compensate Sumi for the damage caused. However, Sumi gets angry and throws the money on their faces, insulting them, and then she kicks them out of there. After the construction workers leave, Sumi tells her father that if he doesn't have any work there, he should leave because she doesn't want to see him anymore. In fact, Sumi holds a deep grudge against her father because he had left Sumi and her mother when she was young. And since then, she has never sought any news about them. At the funeral, someone sees a lawyer named Hyun who seems to be fighting for Sumi's side. Hyun only goes to see Sumi's father and takes him to the area where Sumi's shop was located. There, Hyun shows Sukun that a Chinese construction company named Taishan wants to encroach on this area. Actually, they want to demolish all the shops here and build a shopping mall, but they are willing to illegally encroach on the area if necessary. And that's why Sumi and the other shopkeepers in the area are not willing to vacate their shops, so they join forces together and fight against the Taishan company. Sukun then asks Hyun, "Why did you fight here as Sumi? What benefit do you have here? Do you like Sumi?" Nervously, Hyun replies, "I am just an ordinary lawyer. I want to fight against injustice." A while later, as Sukun exits the shop and walks down the street, he becomes angry with himself, waving his hands in the air, and miraculously, a nearby woman's dustbin flies and falls in front of him. At that moment, Sukun remembers something. A few moments ago when he reached out to grab the lighter, it flew into his hand on its own. Reflecting on this, he practices the same thing at home and is amazed to find an extraordinary power within himself. As a result, he can now manipulate anything in the air. On the other hand, after Sumi's mother's funeral ends and everyone gathers in a garage, Sukun comes there to talk to them. He reassures everyone there, saying that with legal arrangements, everything will be fine. Upon hearing Hyun's words, Sumi says, "Tonight we'll stay here because they can come anytime and encroach on this place." Upon hearing this, Sukun says, "If they come together and attack you, then you won't be able to do anything. It would be better if you come with me and the rest start a shop elsewhere, because you won't stand a chance against such a big company." Then Sukun tells Sumi, "Come with me. I'll give you a new shop. I have an amazing power, and if I want, I can help you earn a lot of money with it." Hearing Sukun's words, everyone there gets excited and asks him to leave the place, because their words seemed unconvincing to them. On the other hand, Sukun, where he used to work, asks a guard how much a magician can earn in a month. The guard says a good magician can earn several million in a month. Upon hearing the guard's words, Sukun contacts a familiar magician and impresses him by showing his power. Meanwhile, when Sumi and Hyun open up everything with a senior lawyer, the lawyer tells them that it's very unlikely for such a big company like Taishan to be easily defeated. Despite trying to see if it's possible, Sumi feels upset upon hearing such words from the senior lawyer, so she returns from there with Hyun. On the other hand, after Sukun gets the job of a magician, he comes to give this good news to his daughter. Sumi shows an example of his power and says, "From now on, I will perform shows in this area as a magician. And you, don't get involved in the madness of those protests with others." On the other hand, upon seeing Sukun's actions, Sumi thinks that perhaps he has learned very basic magic tricks, which is what he's demonstrating. So she fervently tells him to leave from there. Sumi says, "When I was young, you left me and Mom. You have no idea how much we've struggled to come this far, and I'll never protest against those who caused my mother's death." At that moment, Sukun says, "I left you because I was forced to, as the situation was different back then. I invested money in the company that suffered a huge loss, and as a result, creditors were searching for me like madmen. If I hadn't divorced your mother back then, those creditors would have caught you too." But Sumi, without listening to Sukun's words, leaves from there. This makes Sukun upset. As he was leaving, he noticed that several cars had stopped in front of Sumi's shop, and from there, several people from the construction company were heading towards Sumi's shop. In fact, the construction company workers wanted to beat Sumi and force them to leave so that they could take over the entire area. But Sumi was the only obstacle to starting their work, so Sukun goes after them step by step. On the other side, their leader can be seen with the construction workers. While the construction workers were attacking Sumi, Min was recording the entire incident with his manager. It is seen that Sukun also arrives there at that moment and, using her power, saves Sumi from the hands of the construction workers. She uses her power to fight against the construction workers alone, and then, when she remembers her power, she uses it properly to beat each worker one by one. When she grabs a worker by lifting him high in the air using her power, that's when Kim's wife arrives there with the police. Then, as soon as she uses her power, the police take the man away. Then the police take everyone to the station. At the station, Min tries to explain to the police in various ways, but they are the victims. Sukun has beaten everyone using her amazing power. She indeed shows them a video clip, but the police don't believe their words and call them crazy before sending them away. As they leave the station, everyone in Sumi's group continues to praise Sukun's work. That night, when some members of the construction company sit together, they see everything flying around them. In fact, Sukun had removed all kinds of metal objects from the area and had erected a large pillar-like structure in front of Sumi's shop. This was to prevent construction workers from attacking there in haste. When Sukun was using her power, Hyun notices that Sukun herself is flying in the air. Seeing this, he gets scared, and when he asks Sukun about this power, she says, "Believe me, I don't want such power in my life. I only wanted to be an ideal father, but the Creator has given me something else." On the other hand, it is seen that when the construction workers saw Sukun using her power, they got extremely scared and went to Min, saying they didn't want to work there. In the meantime, Min receives a call on his phone, and after the conversation, he informs his manager that they have been invited for dinner by the Tyson company. Upon receiving the invitation, Min takes his manager and goes to the head office of the Tyson company. There, Director Hong meets them to inquire about the progress of the work. In the midst of their conversation, suddenly, a few people come in and start beating Min. While they were beating Min, Mrs. Hong keeps the phone record on and screams in such a way that it seems like someone has attacked their building. I recognize these people. Actually, Mrs. Hong has done all this to physically and mentally torture Min. When those people leave, Hong asks him, "Why work hasn't started yet?" Then Min is compelled to confess everything, saying that someone has used extraordinary power to trap us. Hearing this, Hong is quite surprised, and then she tells Min about a plan through which it will be easy to get rid of Sumi and her gang from here. The next morning, two journalists come to Sumi's shop to report on the matter. They interview Sumi and report on Sukun's power. When Sumi learns that news has been reported about them, they all gather to watch the news. Then, the host of the news asks an employee there for his opinion on Sukun's matter. In response, the employee says that instead of being happy to see the news of these opposing parties being turned upside down, they become quite upset. On the other hand, according to the plan, Min sends two police officers to meet Sukun. Then, the police officers come to Sumi's shop and tell Sukun, "You used to work at the general shop before, and there's a directive to arrest you for theft allegations there." With this, they forcefully take Sukun away. In fact, this was the plan of Hong, the director of Tyson Company, as Sukun is keeping their entire team ahead. So, if somehow Sukun can be separated from them, it will be much easier to attack the others. On the other hand, after taking Sukun into custody, Sumi notices several police units approaching their shop with armed vehicles, a crane, and a lot of heavy equipment. At that moment, Sumi realizes the danger and prepares a petrol bomb to target them. Even though the police face some resistance, they don't stop. Instead, they continue to break the gate of Sumi's shop with the crane. As a result, Sumi and Kim fall down, with Kim's foot getting caught in a rod. Sumi, in great pain, tries to pull Kim away from there, but then several petrol bombs nearby catch fire and a massive explosion occurs. Meanwhile, Hong, the director of Tyson Company, arrives at the police station and meets Sukun. Here, he comes up with another plan, to scare Sukun by showing the consequences of using power like this. Then everyone around will be too scared, and rather than staying with you, they would prefer to surrender. After Hong leaves upon advising to take his daughter somewhere safe, when the police were escorting Sukun from the interrogation room to her cell, she catches a glimpse of the attack on Sumi's shop on the jail's TV. Upon seeing Sukun, the police immediately turn off the TV, which makes Sukun suspicious. At that moment, she uses her power to take the phone from a nearby police officer. Watching the news about the attack on the shop, she becomes extremely agitated. So, she breaks out of her cell and leaves the jail, stealing a car in the process. Meanwhile, Sukun gains complete control over her power. Heading straight to Hong's house, she instills fear, causing the guards to flee in an instant. In this way, Sukun has gained full control over her power. So he uses his power correctly and flies towards Sumi's shop like Superman. Meanwhile, Hyun becomes very worried after watching the news on TV and tries to contact Sumi to know her whereabouts. Sumi then informs him that they are on the 4th floor of the building and the police are attempting to attack them. Hearing this, Hyun instructs everyone to go to the roof while he goes to the adjacent building's roof to rescue them. Upon hearing Hyun's instructions, Sumi takes everyone to the roof. However, when they are about to leave, the police attack them, and during the fight, Mr. Kim falls off the edge and lands below. Sumi holds onto the railing of the roof and swings back and forth. Meanwhile, with the help of a police unit's container, they come to their aid and start throwing hot water towards Kim. Some people had broadcasted this incident live, and when Kim couldn't bear the hot water anymore and let go of the railing, Sukun arrives at the scene. He then breaks a window of another building, enters inside, and from there, continues to fight the police towards the roof. On the other side, when Sumi reaches the roof with everyone, she sees Hyun urging them to go to the adjacent roof using a ladder. Sumi then guides everyone one by one to that building, just as a police unit reaches the roof. They catch Sumi and put her inside a container, while a few remaining officers on the roof continue to attack everyone else. It can be seen that Sumi was in that container. One of the wires of the container breaks, causing a police officer to fall down. Sumi tries to help him, but Sukun arrives on the roof and defeats all the police officers present there. She uses her own power to guide everyone from Sumi's team to the adjacent roof. Then she notices Sumi helping a police officer who fell from the container. Using all her powers to assist Sumi, Sukun tries to bring the container to a roof. However, the container was obstructed by a heavy crane. Using all her powers, she tries to move the container, but it falls off the railing. As a result, Sumi falls from the container, and Sukun comes down to save his daughter in a single leap. He uses his powers to save Sumi before falling to the ground herself. After all this, when Sukun realizes that fighting like this will not work, and that they will face even greater punishment for attacking the police, he decides to surrender. So, he comes down alone from the roof and first apologizes to Min and then surrenders herself to the police. The scene shifts, and in the next scene we see Sukun completing his 4-year sentence and being released from prison. No one comes to pick him up, so he walks alone along the road. After a while, suddenly Hoon arrives there with a car and takes him in the car. When Sukun asks about Sumi during the car ride, Hoon tells her that Sumi is married now, but she replies, "She is married to me." Hearing this, Sukun is quite surprised and says, "But you told me not to like Sumi." In response, Hoon says, "At first, I was afraid of you, so I lied." Then Hoon takes Sukun to a large shopping mall in front of which there was an open field. Hoon tells Sukun that this is the place where Sumi's shop was. Actually, after such a big incident, the government shut down construction by the Taisan company, so no work has been done here since then. Then they go to Sumi's new shop. Actually, Sumi has set up a shop by the roadside at another location, where she sells her famous chicken fries. Everyone is happy to see Sumi's father. But Sumi feels a bit unprepared because she already understands that her father is not a good person. Since she has had a lot of bad experiences with her father before, she couldn't figure out what to do now. Without understanding anything, Sumi tells her father, "You're not helping me serve food. Why?" Sukun hears his daughter's words and becomes happy, using his power to serve beer among everyone. Here we see that Sumi, inspired by her father's superpower, names her shop Super Fried Chicken. Actually, using his inherited superpower, perhaps Sukun couldn't win against the Tyson company, but he has achieved what he wanted. He has won his daughter's heart, and through such a beautiful moment, our story ends today. In reality, even if not every father in the world has superpowers, every one of our fathers is a superhero. Please subscribe for more content like this.